Recently, I stumbled upon one of Finzar's videos showcasing this epic, unique Western style desert animation which immediately grabbed my attention. So let me show you step by step how we can remake it in After Effects. Hi, I'm Oscar, a video editor with 6 years of experience. I teach people video editing and help them make a living out of it. This is the original video. Credits to Finzar for creating this, by the way. It's just a small portion, but it's from the intro, which is usually more complex and creatively detailed. Straight away, I can see that we will divide it into 6 different animations. First, Finzar is riding a horse, setting this scene with that Western vibe. I use Adobe Firefly for generating the images. Actually, I already prepared all the images we need for today. They are located in this folder, plus the prompts I use in order to generate these images are right in here, right in this document. So for the first animation, so 1 and 1.1, we need 2 images. The first one being this one, and the second one, 1.1, is this one. Before we drag them over into After Effects, we still need to tweak them a little bit. So in Photoshop, create a new image that's going to be 920 by 1080. First, we're going to take care of this image of the cowboy on the horse. I'm going to rasterize it. Finzar actually just showed the top part of the horse, and I think that's what we're going to do as well. And now we're going to remove the background. So let's simply delete it using the tool in Photoshop. For that, I'm just going to duplicate it. Now I'm just going to use the rubber tool to erase this area. There are 2 things we need to fix. The quality isn't good enough, and we need to do something with the colors. Decrease the contrast. I'm also going to decrease the saturation a little bit. And now I'm simply going to export Ctrl-Alt-W, upscale that image. And now I can drag it over in here, and I'm actually going to drag it back into Photoshop. Well, simply because we need to replace the face of this character to the face of, we're going to create a circular mask, Ctrl-Shift-I and delete, because now I selected the outer area, make this a little bit smaller, somewhere around here. And now we're going to select this hat using the lasso tool. Let me just erase this. And the lighting of the profile picture is based on the surroundings. So for example, the sun is here. So there's light on the profile picture visible here. And on this side, it's a little bit darker because the sun is casting light only to this side. And draw a little shadow here like so. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to use white. And now we can finally export this. Now the background that Finzar used is quite similar to the one I was able to generate. There's this slight little thing that makes this feel real. It's actually quite hard to notice. He basically divided this and this rock mountain sort of thing from the foreground here. And that basically creates this 3D effect. Look, this isn't moving at the same pace as the foreground. What we'll do in Photoshop, we'll create 2 images. The first one being the foreground, which is these mountains right here and the cacti. That way we'll be able to control the 2 images separately. You will get what I mean very, very soon. Let's hit Ctrl-N, create a new 1920 by 1080 image. So let me duplicate this, and now I'm going to select the front part of this image. And we've basically created a very nice foreground layer that we will then use in After Effects. Export by hitting Ctrl-Alt-W. Export, and now I'm going to enable this bottom layer. I'm going to hit Ctrl while holding the top layer. Now I'm going to hit delete, which is basically going to leave us with something like this, but we're not done yet because now I'm going to use the generative AI brush, which is going to generate this area for us again. And you might think that's dumb, but you're wrong because we will need this. Just give me a sec, I'll show you what for. And now I'm not going to enter in any sort of prompt. I'm just going to hit generate, and that will take a while. That is entirely not what I expected, to be honest, but that's not an issue. This will work. Ctrl-Alt-W to export this. And now we can actually get into After Effects and start cooking. So let's hit Ctrl-N to create a new composition. Let's just call it number 1 because it's the first shot, right? Let's drag over the 3 images we just created. The order here is important. So the cowboy is going to be in the foreground, By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but you can get this entire project file we are working on currently that's completed for free by subscribing to my newsletter. And additionally, you'll get access to all of these prompts if you feel like you need them. Lumetri color, let's drag it over right here. I'm actually going to put this on my secondary monitor so that I can match up the color grade. I think that Finzar has more of a yellowish color grade. I don't think it looks bad. It's just different, right? Now, an important thing to notice is that the background is definitely blurred. The horse, the frontal part of the horse and the back part of the horse is slightly blurred, which basically leads to the main character, which is Finzar's character, being a little bit more in focus in comparison to the other objects. This back layer can be blurred out the most because it's really far away, right? So let's blur it out quite a bit. Now let's copy this Gaussian blur over to this layer. And that's a little bit too much, to be honest. So let's decrease this to something around 17. And then in order to blur just this frontal part and the back part of the horse, we're going to duplicate this layer. We're going to create a mask like this. Let's increase the mask feather. And now we can apply the Gaussian blur to this layer simply by increasing the blur factor. Now when I enable the layer with the cowboy, we're going to be able to notice that the horse is blurred out, but I'm not. So that's what we were trying to achieve. I'm going to select these layers and I'm going to pre-compose them simply because we want to be able to move this around freely. This is the point where we're going to create a new camera. Right, so let's create a 2-node camera. Great, 15mm is fine. And now let's turn this into 3D objects. This layer with the desert, we're actually going to make it quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to tell you why very, very soon. Let's just leave it as it is for now. And then for the pre-composed layer with the horse, we're going to hit position. We're going to make it bigger. And then we're going to hit scale. I'm going to make it smaller again. Just like so. Actually, I'm going to hit position and I'm going to just bring it down like so. Okay, and the back layer here, we're also going to need to make it a little bigger because we made the front layer here big as well. I'm going to bring this up a little bit because the mountain back there is going to look a little bit better. And now if I move this around, we've got this beautiful 3D area we can work with. Now we're going to animate the horse so that it moves up and down. For this shake effect, we're actually going to create some basic keyframing, move a few frames, then move down and then move up, and then move down and then move up, right? If we adjust the position just a little bit to the left and to the right, this will create this realistic movement effect. I'm going to select these keyframes, hit F9, copy these keyframes every now and then in order to loop these keyframes. Nothing is moving in the background, so let's fix that by simply going to this layer, this background layer, and let's go to position at the beginning, and let's move this around to the beginning, create a keyframe, and then move this to the other end of that image. And now we've got this movement, but we still need to create this motion of the character bending his back as he rides the horse. So in order to create that movement, we're going to use the puppet tool thingy. We're going to create a few of these points. So now we're going to create this keyframe here. We're going to bend the head just a little bit. The head moves, and I think that this effect looks good. Then there's this dramatic camera zoom out, making him very distant with a huge echo reverb effect. In order to recreate this, we're going to use two images once again. These are the prompts and these are the images. This is the first image we'll need. So we're probably going to put the cowboy somewhere here. We're going to use this image for the tiny cowboy in the background. So let's create a new 1920 by 1080 project in Photoshop. First of all, I'm going to make it a little bigger. So I'm going to export this as it is currently, and I'm going to upscale that. Now we can download it. Let's remove this layer. The upscaled one can go in here. Let's select this area right here and make it a little more similar to what Finzar did here. Add a few cacti plants and make sure they're tall and nice. Introduce a few rocks. I don't know why, but this doesn't want to generate any rocks. Maybe a single rock? Okay, that did add a rock. This one looks the best. That's actually quite impressive. I like that. And now I'm going to drag over the image of the cowboy right here. Before I downscale it, I'm going to remove its background, duplicate it, disable this one. First, I'm going to decrease the brightness so that it's totally black. Just like so. Now I'm going to downscale it as I mentioned. Let's export this and put it into After Effects. I'm going to export separately, so the background without the guy and the horse right here. And then just the guy on the horse. In After Effects, I'm going to hit Ctrl+N in order to create a new sequence. That looks good. I'm just going to rename it to 2. I'm going to drag over both of these right here. Now, before we add a 3D camera or maybe add some of the dust right here, we still need to color grade this. So give me a sec. Lumetri color. And let's do this. I think that looks good. Now, next up, I'm going to add this dust that you can see right here. I downloaded something like this on Pixabay. I think that might work. We're going to go to Effect, Channel, Shift Channels, and now I'm just going to change this to Luminance, and that way I've got this background removed from the dust. I'm going to bring it down a little bit because we don't need that in the top part. I'm going to create a mask. I'm going to invert that mask and I'm going to increase the feather. It's hard to notice, so I'm going to use Lumetri color. I'm going to try to make it a little more visible. First of all, if I increase the exposure, it's way more visible. I can also play around with the highlights. Okay, once that is color graded, we can reposition it slightly. Now, if I play this back, you will notice that the dust is visible right here. We're going to add a new camera. We're going to create a 2-node camera. That works. Enable keyframing for point of interest and position. Select the keyframes you just created. Move them just a little bit. And now, once you're here at the beginning, you're going to hit 3 on your keyboard and zoom in onto the guy with the horse. And you can reposition it slightly by pressing 2 on your keyboard and adjusting it just like so. If I play this back, it's lame. Like, it's linear and it doesn't look good. So hit F9 on your keyboard in order to easy ease them. That's going to make this smoother, but that's not all yet. We're going to open this graph editor. Make sure you're editing the speed graph. Drag it over just like so. Then the second one, drag this over as well. Afterwards, the camera is suddenly tight on his character's face as he grabs his binoculars. We're going to need to use this image number 3, a cowboy in a beige outfit, etc. This one. As always, we need to launch Photoshop 1920 by 1080. That looks good. Drag over that image right here. Let's make him centered. Let's remove the background first in order to separate the guy from the background, of course. Copy that. We've got the background removed, draw over here, and let's simply tell the AI model to remove the guy. Wonderful job. Let's merge that, and now we've got these separated. We need to make him even bigger. Since the guy is way bigger now, we need to upscale him, download it, and then put it back into Photoshop. Rasterize this layer because we don't want it to be a smart one. Now let's separate the binoculars from the guy. Let's apply some corrections here. Okay, that's selected. Let's duplicate it, and that way we're able to achieve something like this. Now I'm going to use the eraser tool to erase the arms right here. Now I'm going to select this area and tell Photoshop to remove this. Okay, that's weird, but no worries. We're going to deal with that. Delete. Okay. And then on the other side, do the exact same thing. And now we've got all of these layers separated from each other. And the next thing we're going to do is replace the face of this guy to my profile picture. And once again, we created a circular mask. Hit Ctrl-Shift-I, delete the outer area. And that way we got rid of these ugly corners. Place the profile picture right here. I'm going to change the blending mode to lighten. That way I can see the line between the hat and the head of the guy in the original picture. And I can simply erase this area very easily. Now I can switch back to normal and this looks epic. Let's fix the area where a little bit of that neck is uncovered. Button up the shirt. That looks a little better, so I'm just going to deselect this and merge it with the original photo. And next up, I'm going to add a shadow just beneath this area. I'm just going to create a new layer and I'm going to draw it like so. I'm also going to use the eraser to remove it from here and right here. Finzar also created this super cool casting sunlight effect right here, but I don't have any hair. Something that we did in the first animation in this video is having one side of the profile picture brighter and the other side being darker based on the direction of the sun. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. And then on this side, we can also play around with the color grade of the profile picture. For example, we can decrease the contrast just a little bit. Change the skin color to white. Okay, then maybe you can deal with something like this. Let's export everything separately. So first this layer, then this layer, and then the background. As always, we need to do the color grading first, so give me a sec. So first things first, the camera is slightly shaky, but just a little bit. And there's a very subtle zoom in onto Finzar. And then, you know, the binoculars slide from the bottom. First, let's add a camera. So new camera, 2-node camera, that looks good. Let's turn these into 3D objects and hit P on your keyboard. Now zoom out a little bit, just like so. Then click S on your keyboard and zoom in back again. And we'll also apply Gaussian blur to the background because that's something we forgot about earlier. I'm actually going to hit position while having the character selected and bring him slightly closer to the camera. And now I'm going to expand this camera, transform, point of interest, position, right? Skip a few frames forward, hit 3 on your keyboard, 2 on your keyboard, and then just move around slightly left, right, top. That looks better, but of course we need to easy ease them in order to make them look 10 times fucking. Let's hit F9 to easy ease those. Okay, I think that movement looks quite good now that I played around with it a little bit. Now for the zoom in, I'm simply going to select the keyframes for the bottom part, which is for position, because those refer simply to the zoom in factor. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that subtle zoom in onto the face of the character, just a very tiny bit. I created these 2 keyframes. At the beginning it's slightly smaller and then here it's slightly bigger. Let's select those, hit F9. Okay, that looks nice actually. Now before we take care of the binoculars, I also noticed there's a little bit of dust in the background right here. And we can simply copy that from here, paste it in. Let's place it behind the character and we can probably remove the mask because that's not necessary. Move it up, scale it up a little bit. And now if I play this back, and now let's take care of those binoculars. You hit P in order to bring them to the front. And now we need to create the slide in effect. So transform, position, let's move it to the right. And then let's bring those binoculars right here to the bottom. I'm actually going to easy ease those keyframes straight away. And I'm going to go to the speed graph, drag it over just like so. And maybe let's expand this slightly, hit this icon in order to enable motion blur for the entire project. And let's enable motion blur for that layer. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too much. Set it to 120. Okay, we're done. I think that looks solid.